Hey guys, today I'll be showing you on another adventure of another restoration of a Minimoog, and this is one that's it's a little sad. It's not been played in quite a long time evidently, and it's set on its side, the only thing I can guess on concrete, like maybe in a basement or a garage, and it absorbed moisture into this end chick and it's actually rotted it out. So this end chick, if you look at it, it's actually all flaked up and just it's pulling away, it's cracking, it's just not good. So I'm going to do some work on this cabinet here. Besides that though, the rest of the cabinet looks pretty good, but it's just got a lot of rot on this end piece here. So I'm going to be studying that, but I decided to turn my attention away from the cabinet first off on this one and just focus on getting this thing running again. So once again, there's not really much to show you on this one because it was unsafe to power up. So I had to basically, I'm going to start with getting it safe to power, then I'm going to go through diagnostics and all that good stuff. But what I always do with these Minimoogs is when I get them in, I first take the back panel off to see what I'm dealing with. And as you can see, I've already pulled the circuit boards out of this one. And this is our major problem, is the rectifier caps. I noticed when I did a visual is that they have actually started coming apart, which is not good. You can see that the red seal, and you can see right down there where it is actually starting to deteriorate, and it started leaking the fluids and all that good stuff. So it's actually lost its capacitance, so it's not safe to run. And I can tell just by looking at the rectifier diodes, they've been hot. That one in particular, it's got the wrong fuse in it. I checked the fuses, it's got the wrong fuse in it, so I know it's blowing fuses, and so it looks like they've got a higher ampage fuse in it. So got to fix that before we do anything else. Put a new power cord on it. You can see I've already removed the power cord. Here's a new power cord that's going to be going in it. The old power cord, once again, is just so cracked up. You can see just all the cracks in it. And if we look right here where it was connected, well, it definitely was not very safe, to say the least. It's got some exposed wiring in it, and that would not look as bad as some of them I see, but it's definitely still not healthy. So new power cord, start with the rectification circuitry, and we'll work our way through the boards. So what this circuit does, for those that don't know electronics, I'm going to explain it real quick. So what you got your transformer. This is your transformer. What it does, it takes 120 volt AC in, and it takes it down to a lower voltage. I think it's around, if I remember right, it's around 19 volts. I believe is what it brings it down to. 20 volts roughly. And then what it does, it goes into your rectifier diodes right here. And what they do, they work like check valves. If you think about a flow, like something that flows one way, it won't let it flow back the other way. That's exactly what a diode does. And so what it does is, as this transformer creates 60 hertz AC, it's swinging between positive and negative in the sine wave that comes in on your AC. And so what these do is they take the sine wave and they split up the positive slope and the negative slope. Gives you something called pulsating DC. So that's pulsating DC that this thing gives you. And then what these cap right here, what their job is to take that pulsating DC and filter it and rectify it a little bit more to make it a smoother, unregulated DC voltage, so you lose the pulses. You may still have a little bit just based off design, but you will actually lose a lot of that sloping in that sine wave as you capture the positive and negative. So this gives you your positive and negative voltages that's used for your plus negative 10 volts. But it's a little bit more complicated than that, because then it goes to a power supply circuit board, and it's actually regulated, so it's actually controlled, and it's got feedback, and it's got all this stuff it uses to sense the voltages throughout the unit, so it can actually self-regulate. Once you set the regulation, it'll actually keep itself within a tolerance based off load changes. So that's the whole job of the circuit. So with this being bad, you don't really want to put any AC through your power supply, because you can damage other things, and your power supply can't do its job correctly, so nothing works right. And you risk damaging stuff when you get high AC ripple through it. And of course you're pulling extra current because these caps aren't working like they should, so actually dropping more current. And you got some issues with blowing primary fuses because your transformer's pulling more current, trying to charge these caps, and they're not charging. They're not charging up, and that's the problem. So that's where we're starting. And so I'm going to be replacing these guys and taking care of the power cord as mentioned. But you can just once again get a good look at the inside of it here. And like I say, this is a 73 Minimoog, so let me strap up right here. This is my ESD control stuff. I've got the circuit boards pulled here, and you can see that these are actually early enough that they say RA Moog Incorporated. And later in 74, they would just become Moog Music badged boards. So pretty cool. This is actually the VCA, the VCA, VCF, and 440 Hertz, and also the audio input, external audio input circuitry. And there you can see your transistor ladder. But once again, I've got a video on the history of Minimoogs. I'll post in the link of this video so you guys can go check that out for those really curious about what all I'm talking about. Is this got a early scale trim, so this is before they did the rheostat scale trim inside the board. That would happen in 74, early 74, like January 74. So this is actually an August 1st, 1973 Minimoog. So you know, it's pretty cool. So it's still built like an early 73. It's got the square badges. It's got the plastic panel with the metal backing, which I've brought up. Actually, I brought that up in my last video when I restored that last Minimoog. But you can see this one's got that metal. If I can get my camera to focus. There it is. You can kind of see that metal backing right there, especially right by the switch. You can see it's actually got a metal backing on this interface, where the later ones are just all vinyl. So you lose all that metal work, and they just tend to warp worse than the vinyls. But overall, you can see this side looks great. The cabinet looks great all the way down. Keyboard's, you know, pretty good. It needs to be rebuilt, of course. You know, this thing's been sitting for a long, long time. But it's just this end down here that is absolutely just toast. So I've got to figure out what I'm going to do there in my approach. So I've decided just to focus on getting all the electronic stuff done, getting this Minimoog playing really good, and then I'll turn my attention to the cabinet while I make some decisions. But anyways, there'll be some updates here pretty soon. Alright guys, just some more updates for you here. So I've replaced the power cord, the rectifier diodes, the filtering capacitors, which was the primary stuff I wanted to address before I even powered this thing up, because they're just very unhealthy and unsafe. So I did all that, and then I put the boards back in and just ran diagnostics and took care of a few repairs that needed. So that's kind of where we are. I hadn't done anything as far as restoration goes, just primarily getting this thing up where I could hear it and safely, you know, test everything. And so anyways, oscillator 1 was dead. That was one of the problems I had, which it later turned out it wasn't dead. I looked at it with a scope, and when I was, you know, doing some troubleshooting, and it was actually running at 48 kilohertz, so it's way above audio range. So I took care of the problems it had, and then that was really about it as far as a lot of problems. The pots, of course, you know, were a little scratchy, so I cleaned some of the pots up and got everything cleaned up there. But as you can hear, this is all three oscillators together here. Let me open this filter up here. See here how great it sounds. Oscillator 1. So oscillator 1's working great. So that's fantastic. It does still have one problem though, and you can see it jumping around in the scope over here. And what that is that's actually the noise source. We've got a noise source problem. And so if we just turn on just the noise source, you're going to hear. So you just kind of hear that sounds. Now what's interesting about working on instruments like this, because I get them in a lot that's broken, is you get sound sometimes that you don't get out of a working Minimoog. I just thought this was kind of interesting sound. So if we actually close this filter up, and we got everything turned off in the audio here. So I got the modulation bus on for the filter, got the filter shut up so it'll self-oscillate, and I've got the modulation mix set to noise. And I'm going to show you what this thing sounds like when we engage that broken noise source into the filter. It's just kind of a funny sound. We got white. It's kind of an interesting sound. It kind of sounds like R2-D2's messed up cousin. It's kind of what it sounds like there. But anyways, that's the last issue we got to fix to get this thing, you know, fully working. Of course, I'm not worried about it because I do see this sometimes in the noise source, and I kind of know what it is. But anyways, I'll walk here on back and just kind of let you see this thing. I don't know if I've ever really showed one kind of filleted open like this. Moog, you know, they hinge the front of it so you could actually pull this bottom chassis part down, and then you can get in there and work on it. So it's kind of handy for a technician's standpoint. But anyways, I'll show you what this thing is for those that are looking at this thing going, what am I looking at? This board right here, this is your oscillators. This is the version 2 oscillator board that we're looking at here. And it holds all 3 oscillators and a power supply, the negative 5 volt supply. Here behind here we got the keyboard circuit, and then we got the envelope generators, or contour generators as Moog likes to call them. We go over here to this front board. This is your transistor ladder filter, your VCA circuitry, and the external input preamp and overload driver circuit for the light on the front for the overload. And then this right here on the side of this board is the 440 Hertz generator, the oscillator for your tuning reference. Behind that you got your power supply for the plus and negative 10 volts, your headphone amplifier, and the noise source. So that's where I've got to go in here and troubleshoot. Now it's all discrete, so I can go in here and look at it by transistor and filter circuitry and all that kind of stuff, and find out, you know, where that problem is and take care of it. So it's kind of nice. It's a lot easier to do that than have a chip that's rare and the chip goes bad and then you got to go try to find a chip or something that'll work in its place. And so I just love discrete circuitry. It's just so much easier to work on. It takes a little bit more time to troubleshoot, and you have to know a little bit more what you're doing. But you know, in a nutshell, it's all repairable. So that makes it really nice. Alright, so I'm actually getting ready to delaminate the interface panel on this Minimoog. And I decided just to go and do this because this is actually getting a brand new walnut cabinet. And because it's getting a brand new cabinet, you don't want to put anything in the new cabinet that looks, you know, kind of dated and it doesn't match the cabinet quality. So what I'm doing, I actually took this one off and be doing the same delamination process I did on Bruce's Minimoog. But this is kind of a cool opportunity to really show you some differences. So this is a 73 Minimoog, and as you've heard me mention time and time again, early Minimoogs have a metal-backed interface panel. So 73 in particular has a metal-backed panel with embossed leather. And this is a fine example. So you can see it's got a metal backing, but it's got a vinyl overlay adhered to the aluminum. And so that's kind of how it works. But I just thought you guys might like to see kind of how that's made. Now when you go to 72, it's the same process like my 72 Minimoog, which I actually made in June of 1972. It's actually got the same manufacturing process as far as aluminum with a vinyl overlay, but it doesn't have the embossed leather. It's just smooth. And then when you go back even further, like maybe mid-72, or maybe even a little later in 72, or I'm sorry, earlier in 72, they actually went to etched interface panels. So they actually still had the etching. So all this was, instead of being ink with a vinyl, it was actually an etched piece of aluminum that had the details etched into the aluminum. So pretty cool stuff there, but I just thought you guys might enjoy seeing that. But this Minimoog's just about done, even though it don't look like it. I've rebuilt the keyboard assembly. I've got all the circuit boards rebuilt and tested. I've got everything done. I installed the buffer board. So this Minimoog is just about finished. Just doing some little cosmetic things to make sure this thing, when we switch the chassis over, it's going to look really, really sharp. Alright guys, I got this Minimoog all complete. As you can see, it's a much different instrument than it was when we started here. But a brand new walnut cabinet, absolutely beautiful cabinet. Thanks to Wes Taggart for that. His work is absolutely just fantastic on these cabinets. So new walnut cabinet. Of course you saw I did the delamination earlier on this video. Something I didn't mention though is I did actually delaminate both the LHC and the badge. So that's been delaminated as well. Got the keyboard shimmed up. Got it where it sits in here really nice, this new cabinet. And it just absolutely looks beautiful. As you can see, it's just a beautiful Minimoog now. Much different than it was. But as you saw earlier, I went to the keyboard assembly, rebuilt the keyboard assembly. Had a time getting the key bushings off. This one here, sometimes key bushings come off pretty easy that are old. This one here, they were all rotten, and they had actually stuck to the metal of the combs or the stops. And so I had to actually get those things off. That took quite a while. But it was definitely worth it once I got those off there. But you can see the laminate. So here's the laminate off the LHC. So just kind of give you an idea of what this looks like when it's removed. Even the badge is mentioned. Removed it off that. And then, of course, the main interface. So that's the laminate that was on the interface. Now, if you guys have a Minimoog that has little bubbles or creases, or it's kind of looking like it's got a white kind of tone to it, this is what's happened. Is this stuff starting to gas off, and it's separating out of the interface. So I just remove them. So it's quite a job to remove. It's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. It makes everything look so much better. And of course, with this new chassis, I didn't want to leave that on there because it would look like a ugly, ugly panel with a brand new chassis. Didn't want that. But anyways, I'll walk you on around here, so you can just see how great this thing looks just down the keyboard there. Walk on around here. You can see the back under chassis is new as well. And new power cord as mentioned earlier. And also just show you, this is your serial number, Randy. It's 2742, so there's your serial number. And this Minimoog was actually made August 1st, 1973. So it's a 1973 Minimoog. And of course, one thing I'm going to bring up, I always bring up, you don't see the voltage selector switch like you have on 74 Minimoogs. So you don't have the voltage selector between 110 to 230 volt. So the transformer is already hardwired on its primaries for 120 American voltage. But anyways, you can just see how great this thing looks. It just cleaned up so well. This chassis looks absolutely amazing, and I know you're going to be very happy with it. But anyways, let me put the camera on the tripod here, and I'll make you guys a demo. Alright, so anyways, I'm going to start first just by showing you the oscillators and just kind of a sound I built here, just to kind of give you an overview of the unit as a whole. And then I'll actually break it down, oscillators, filter, contour generators, etc., just like I typically do in my videos. But anyways, here we go with just the sound I've built here. It's just a really cool, aggressive Minimoog kind of sound. Sounds really good. anyways, you hear how great that thing sounds just as a unit. Filter sounds fantastic. Everything sounds really good. But I'm going to open this filter up real quick, and I'll show you the oscillators here. So let me get them all set up with our uniform here. So we got everything set here. This is just the oscillators. Filter's open. And you'll be able to hear how accurate the footages are. I added the buffer board to this particular Minimoog. So it's got a buffer board, and it's got some updates to the version 2 oscillator board, which helps the stability. Still going to naturally drift because that's just the design of it, but it is going to help with overall tuning accuracy. So here we go through the footages. So anyways, you can hear the footages there, how well these oscillators are uniform with each other here. But we'll start with oscillator 1. I'll show you the waveforms. We'll go to 16 footage and all these. So here's oscillator 1 only. I'll go through the waveforms. I'll show you the volume pot here as well. So there's oscillator 1. Here's oscillator 2. There's oscillator 2. Here's oscillator 3. So there's all 3 oscillators there. I'll go back. I think I forgot to show you the footage of oscillator 1 by itself. Let me do that real quick. So there's the footage of oscillator 1. Can't remember if I showed you that earlier. But anyways, now I'll show you the range of the detunes of oscillator 2 and 3 here. So here's oscillator 2. So there's oscillator 2, here's oscillator 3. And so there's your oscillator. Also, your noise source works. I repaired the noise source. There's white noise, that's white noise, and here's pink noise. Same thing, good clean volume pot. So there's your noise source, your oscillators. Now we'll go to your filter here. So I got the contour turned down here. We'll bring in this filter so it'll self-oscillate here. So here's just the filter. That is mixed with the oscillators just a little bit there. But we got key tracking, so we can turn tracking off the filter, so it's just going to hold a stable frequency. We got 1, 2. When they're both together, you get full tracking. as you can see. So there's your filter. So that's your filter. I was going to show you the contour generator for the filter. So we'll set everything to 0 here. I'm going to bring up the mounted contour. Let me get this thing to sustain for me. So you can see that it's actually got a everything set to 0, so you get just a click. I'm going to bring up the decay. So there's your decay. Set it back to 0. Here's your attack time. And then we've also got the sustain level. And basically we put a little bit of decay time on that and then bring in the sustain. It'll set how far down that decay goes. So you get something like that. It's just a really cool sound there. So there's your filter. Now we'll open it back up and we'll go to the loudness contour. So we'll set everything to 0 here. It's just going to be just a click. We'll turn the oscillators back on. Here it's just a click. So there's our decay. So that's our decay time. We'll still go a lot longer than that. And then we got the attack. So set everything back to 0. So you get something like that right there. We'll set that back to 0. Then we got the sustain level. So that's how far down it's going to go. As always mentioned, it's a good way to get percussive kind of stuff because we can bring the sustain level up a little bit, bring the decay up a little bit. To get something like that right there. It also helps too if you don't want it to go all the way to 0, so you can just have a decay and then set your sustain level. So you get something like that. You've also got your decay switch over here, which I'll show you that works. So if I hit a key right now and let off, it's going to follow out the decay time. If I hit the decay switch off, you get something like that. So all that works there. Now I'll show you the modulation and glide and everything. Also, let me go back to the oscillator right quick. I will show you too, I did the dead zone mod to the pitch wheel. So now you got a true dead center, so you don't have sharps or flats when you use the wheel. When you return it to the D10, it's going to be perfectly in tune. As you can see, I can wiggle it within the detent and there's no effect of tuning. Makes a world of difference to the tuning of these things as well. So that's your dead zone pitch wheel there. Now I'll show you your modulation. So we'll lose oscillator 3, we'll turn oscillator 1 and 2 on. So we'll actually set this to low frequency. Here's our modulation. We'll modulate the oscillators first. We'll slow it down a little bit. So you can hear the modulation of your oscillator there. We can also inject noise into that using the modulation mix. So you can hear it. So you can engage noise into your oscillators there, or the modulation of oscillator 3. So turn the modulation off there. We'll go back to the filter. We'll close it up. Same thing here. We got the noise. Pink noise. Get some Pink Floyd there just a little bit, but you can change the waveform, of course, of oscillator 3, change your modulation waveform. But it gets really cool when you detune the oscillators just a hair. It doesn't take much of detuning. So anyways, there's the Minimoog. I just want to take a minute here and go over it for you and just kind of show everything functions here. But I'll show you too your glide works. I hadn't showed you that yet. So we'll go here and just... So anyways, there's your Minimoog. So I just want to take a minute here and go over it for you. And really do appreciate it, Randy. And there'll be more here to come for you guys that watch my videos. Thanks again for watching. Take care.